Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Untitled Chapter viewers. So yesterday I put up the shoe video, which actually did very well, and thank you guys all for your comments on it. Now, there are some tech videos that I do need to get out, Apple related, but I did get a specific request to compare the MacBook Air to the iPad Pro. In that same vein, I also got a request from a couple people to do a comparison of the MacBook Air to the MacBook Pro. So today's video is going to focus on the MacBook Air versus iPad Pro. Now, I know a lot of you guys are students and are in college or high school, and you really want to choose the right device for the job. I know that can be a little bit tough to decide on, especially when Apple just launched their new MacBook Air and their new iPad Pro. So taking a look at both of them here, I pulled up both of these screens so that we can kind of go over them. And I've also made a list, which I will be referring to about pros and cons of each. So first off, let's do a general overview of each of these devices. So first here, we've got the MacBook Air in space gray. Obviously, you can choose your three different colors. You've got gold, space gray, and the usual silver. Now, these are made from 100% recycled aluminum. I don't know if that matters to any of you guys, but I want to put that out there. So this comes with a 1.6 gigahertz dual core 8th gen Intel Core i5 processor with turbo boost up to 3.6 gigahertz, a Retina display, thank God, 8 gigabytes standard for RAM, 256 gig storage, Intel UHD graphics, and you guys can read the rest. Now, some of this is upgradable. For example, you could upgrade your memory to 16 gigs for $200. Personally, if you're just a student, you might not need this, but if you want to future-proof it just a bit, this might not be so bad. Now, something that is very personal for you guys would be storage. It really depends how heavily you rely on your Mac for storage. You can always buy an external hard drive for like $100. That'll usually get you about 1 terabyte. As you can see, this is a $200 upgrade. Really up to you guys. Personally, I always go 512 on my machines, but I think in the future, after this 2018 MacBook Pro that I'm on now wears out, I think I'm going to go for a 1 terabyte in the future, but that I don't have to worry about for another 5 years at least, hopefully. And that's really all you get to customize. So there's not a whole lot of customization here. And I know a few of you guys have asked, should I get the gold one? Does that look gay? I'm a dude. And to be honest with you guys, if I click on gold one here and select it, I don't think it looks gay at all, but this gold tone does have undertones of rose gold in it. So you can see it's not a pure gold. It's not pink. It's honestly more of a rose gold. So if you guys are, self-conscious about stuff like that, maybe you want to skip the gold this year. So if I scroll down here, you guys can see it is a little bit on the pink side, but if you're comfortable with yourself rocking that, go for it. By all means, I think it's a nice color. I don't think I'd rock it on a daily basis, but for some of you, you might want to. Now let's head over to the iPad Pro here and just quickly go through this. So you really got to ask yourself, do I need an 11-inch display or a 12.9 inch? So let's say you choose the 11-inch. That one starts in at $799 for either color. So let's say silver, just because why not? So you've got 64, 256, 512, and 1 terabyte. I think for most people, the sweet spot here is definitely the 256. However, that bumps it up into the 12.9 inch category because it's at $949. As you can see, this one starts at $999, but that's for 64. So if you don't need that storage, let's say you have iCloud storage, you guys could definitely get away with the 64 gig. But again, if you're spending so much money at the same time, it's hard to justify spending, $1,000 on an iPad that only has 64 gigs of storage. So it's just, Apple makes it really tough here because if they would have just done the 128 gigs, it would be easier. So those are really the only things that you have to choose from. You can choose Wi-Fi or cellular depending on your needs. I think most people will get the Wi-Fi, and there you go. It's $1,000. Now I think the sweet spot here would be the 256. But again, we're up into MacBook Air territory. You can see where I'm getting at here. After taxes and everything, this one will probably be close to $1,200. This one's $1,400, but with the MacBook Air, you're getting an entire laptop. So let me go through the pros and cons here now that we've kind of gone over the basics. For the iPad Pro, the pros here are that it's a smaller overall form factor. I mean, you can slip this in pretty much any bag that you would like. It's smaller overall. It's just more compact. Next, it has a touchscreen. So if you do something that really needs touchscreen, like some sort of graphical design where you need to use the Apple Pencil, this is the one you're going to want. It's also quieter. I'm not for sure on this. I think this does have a fan in it. Don't quote me on that. There have not been many videos out about it yet, but I believe it has a fan. But that shouldn't be your worry here. I'm talking quieter overall from like a keyboard perspective, because obviously this does not come with one. So if you want one, you can buy one separately. However, most keyboards are probably going to be a little bit quieter than the ones on the MacBook Pros, which I believe is the same one they've put on the MacBook Air. And lastly, it's cheaper. So you guys could definitely spec this out. You could get the 11-inch model with 64 gigs for $800, maybe $850 after tax. That is a lot different than $1,400 right here for the base model MacBook Air. Now, some cons for the iPad Pro, it's very limited. This is running iOS, you have to remember that. This is not running full-fledged Mac OS. So on a Mac, you get the full suite of pretty much everything on the Mac App Store, stuff you can download. You can run things like Xcode if you're a programmer. You can't do that on the iPad. You can only do that on the MacBook. So there's a lot of hardcore programs that the iPad Pro cannot run. Keyboards may also not be as good because you're going to be putting a smaller version of whatever keyboard onto this thing, one that probably is in a case, unless you want to carry around an extra Bluetooth keyboard, which many people do not want to do. But those are for the MacBook Pro. Let's go over the MacBook Air. So the pros for the MacBook Air are, first of all, it's a full-fledged laptop. Like I said before, this can run pretty much anything that you throw at it. Now, if you're gonna be editing 4K video, you have to remember this is a dual core processor. It is not super powerful. I think even the base MacBook Pro now has a quad core in it. So if you're kind of deciding between MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, stay tuned. I'll probably film that video today, but won't release it till tomorrow or the next day, just because I don't want to flood you guys with videos. Keep in mind, this is a dual core processor, and that honestly would not be enough for me, but I do a lot of video editing with 4K material. Next up, the MacBook Air has great battery life, especially for a laptop. So if you're looking for all-day battery life, this is probably what you're gonna want. The iPad Pro is no slouch. This MacBook Air really has good battery life, especially for a laptop. Next up, it's got a bigger screen. I believe this is a 13.3-inch screen Retina display. So that is bigger than even the biggest iPad Pro. Now, again, it's not touchscreen, so MacBook Airs don't have touchscreen, but it is a bigger display. You get the full program experience, like I mentioned before. Now, there may be some apps for iPad that work really well with iPad, and they might also have those apps on the Mac App Store. But the Mac App Store apps are almost always going to be more robust. There's going to be more features. And honestly, I would totally choose a Mac app over an iPad app most days, just because there's more you can do with it. And lastly, with a Mac, you get a trackpad and a keyboard built in, and you can navigate like this. I know a lot of people's main concern with the iPad is that there's no mouse support. You can't click on things. You can't use it like a normal laptop. And honestly, I think that's a huge deal breaker for a lot of people. They want to be able to use it kind of as a laptop, especially at school. So you don't have to keep touching the screen. In fact, you can't. Well, I guess you could touch the MacBook Air screen, but I don't recommend that. I think the trackpad is a big deal. Now the trackpad on the MacBook Air is not as good as the MacBook Pros, but I'll get into that in the other video. It's at least not as big, I should say that. Now, some cons for the MacBook Air. It's louder, the keyboard is louder, and you could hear a little fan noise. So if you're in a super quiet room, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but if I just start typing random stuff, it's kind of loud. With Apple's new keyboard, it is kind of on the loud side. Now, they did put those little mini condoms under every single key to kind of keep dust out, and that dampened the noise a little, but it's still, I don't know, it's going to be louder probably than an iPad Pro keyboard. Now, this could be a con as well. There's no touchscreen on the MacBook Air. There's no Apple Pencil support, so you can't really draw anything. And lastly, it's more expensive. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest deal breaker for a lot of you guys deciding, because for a college student, $1,300 is a lot for a lot of you guys. And I understand that, because if you would spec this out the way I would do it, if I had to get one of these, this is what it would be. And that's $1,800. That's a lot of money. Now for the iPad Pro, if I was going to spec it out, I don't know that I would get the 12.9 inch. That's huge. And you can see it kind of looks more squarish. But anyways, this is how I would spec out the iPad if I were going to get one, and that would be a whopping, almost $1,200. Hopefully this kind of helped you guys, or at least answered some of your guys' questions, because again, I've been getting comments on this quite a bit from a few of you guys. Some of you guys have been DMing me on Instagram, on Twitter, here on YouTube. And really what I want to do is I want to take all the video ideas that you guys want and put them in front of you and help you guys make the best decision you can. So hopefully this helped. Personally, if it was my choice, I would pick a MacBook Air over the iPad Pro 9 out of 10 times. The only time I wouldn't is if you really need to draw stuff with the Apple Pencil. That would really be the only time. But before you buy that MacBook Air, do not forget about the MacBook Pros, which come in at, well, this one's $100 less. Now there are some trade-offs here, which I will get into in the next video. But for now, leave any comments or questions down below and I will try to get to you guys as soon as I can. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.